Okay, here we are with the carrier bearing install. First note, hydraulic press is always the preferred method. If you're going to do the carrier bearing install and all this on your own, just be very careful with everything. Okay, that being said, this is how I accomplished the first carrier bearing install right there on the bottom. You can see the socket stacked up on an old race. Well, the socket itself is smaller than the top side of the bearing itself, so it only makes contact with the race. If you decide to do that, that's an important note. Whatever you use to tap this on, make sure you're not tapping on your bearing. That being said, the first step I took is, it's about 40 degrees out here, so I know that that carrier is nice and shrunk up. I could throw it in the freezer for a little extra help, but it wasn't necessary. This is my bearing preheat technique. Just stick it in front of a radiant heater, and I've been rotating it every 5 minutes or so, just letting it get to a higher ambient temperature. That way that inner race is going to be slightly larger than it will by the time I'm done, and it starts sucking up this, or cooling down to the same temp as that piece. And yeah, same thing. I just tapped around in circles, tap 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 tap, and watched it walk right on. Alright, I stopped right here just to get a shot. Now you can see this portion where the race slips onto. You have to stop right here with that socket, because you'll start rounding off this top and you'll never get this other bearing back on, or a new one reseated if you ever have to do another bearing job. Once you stop here, I have to pretty much use the old race stacked, and then socket on top. And things slow down quite a bit when you do this, because there's two pieces and they continually want to jump off to one side or the other. So the last, I don't know, what is that, probably 3/16 of an inch, goes a little bit slower, but it goes on. So I was getting ready to install the ring on my carrier, and I ran into something. It's a little disconcerting. On the left is the stock bolt. You can see it's got about a 1/4 inch of shank, and once it's put in the carrier, you try to shake it back and forth, it's not going anywhere. That shank completely centers each bolt. The ones they gave me, the length is right, but there's no collar, and once they're threaded in, there's quite a bit of room for play. I realized that the ring does essentially press on to this little shoulder right here, but at the same time, it just seems kind of flimsy that they would provide me with that kind of hardware. And even looking at this bolt, it's like leaning to one side, it's not ground very well. Even the head on it is non-uniform. I don't know if you can see that or not, but I don't know. Looks like I'm gonna go with some degreaser and get all these bolts dried out from the old one, because it just seems like the right thing to do. Okay, so the ring gear install was pretty easy. Make sure you use Loctite on all the nuts. I use all the stock nuts because of the flanges, once again, that and the shoulders of the shanks. On that, because there's a press on portion at the very base of the ring gear, what I ended up having to do was I went one at a time on the bolts, and you're only able to make about maybe 1/8 of a turn as you tighten each one and go around. And I had to go around this probably, I didn't count, but I would guess anywhere from 50 to 100 times to get it pulled all the way up. And after that, grab your torque wrench, put that in a solid location and get them up to 60 to 65 foot-pounds, at least for this application. Take them up to your specified torque. Next thing I'm on to is trying to set the pinion with the right number of shims so that it's in the same location as the last one. Still got some question marks on that. I think I'm going to jump online.